We'll analyze the numbers in greater detail, but also look at the mid-cap index, because earlier it was hanging on, but now it has exacerbated its losses. So that's down about 1%. And look at stocks like Mastech, Adani Enterprises, Syntex. They're all seeing cuts of about 4%. Jagdish Malkani, member BSE, now joins in to make sense of what's happening. Hi, Jagdish. Thanks much for joining in. Is it just the China effect, or is there more that's plaguing the market?
Well, a combination of factors. Our own front, clearly the little promise, the promissory note, ugly head rearing its head, the head again. And but more importantly, it's global markets are weak over the weekend, and now of course it's China back in play. And I mean, to be honest, not sounding smug or I told you so types, but it did seem very bizarre, this whole state-controlled revival of the Chinese market. It was only a matter of time before you'd see something like this. And I think this time, probably the fall will be far more harsh. Now the issue is how much it affects places like the Indian stock market. That in an indirect way, I mean, it's largely a Chinese issue, but then how can, it's the second largest economy in the world, and its knock-on effects on demand. And
so Jagdish, how will this impact the Indian markets? And at 8,400, what would be your recommendation? Should you go ahead and buy?
Well, clearly it's the gorilla in the room as far as commodities go. So ours is a double-edged thing. So it's great for us in terms of lower costs for most commodities led by crude, etc., and therefore for the businesses that use those. But on the other hand, it's the demand. So whether it's Land Rover, whether it's and then the whole business of dumping metals. I mean, in commodities, whatever is dumpable. I mean, for example, steel. Just the interest cost per ton for most of our majors today is higher than the landed price of Chinese steel. So unless we can, the government goes overboard with duties and etc., which in this new WTO regime is not so simple. So those are the effects.
All right, Jagdish, for the moment, thanks very much for joining in. Also look at some stocks. I mentioned Adani Enterprises, that has hit a 52-week low, as is something like an Allahabad Bank. So the stock is down about 3.5%, also sitting at a 52-week low. Vedanta is the other one. We've been talking about these commodity-related names. Vedanta too is at, it's in fact at 128 now, so that's a 52-week low as well for that stock. And Dena Bank, so Allahabad Bank, Dena Bank, so any number of stocks are now seeing incremental weakness. Ambareesh Baliga, an independent market expert, also now joins in to make sense of what's happening. Ambareesh, what is it that's on the market mind now? Is it China? Is it the P note worry? Or is it just expiry week at play?
First of all, I think the market had run up a bit too much, and it was getting into the overbought zone. And along with that, now we have seen that the earnings have not really surprised on the positive side. In most of the cases, it was in fact a negative surprise. You have the China issue going on, the monsoon session, again, where I was a bit worried in the past, and that's also come true that it has been washed out the last week. And on top of that, now you also have the P notes issue. So I think this whole thing has all come together, and this is what is leading to this crack. But I don't think this will be a one-way street down because, at lower levels, you normally have some amount of value buying coming in. So there could be bounce backs. But overall, if you're talking of the next couple of weeks, I still stick to my earlier view that we should see the markets closer to about 8,000 or slightly below that.
Okay, so now is not a good time to buy, considering that we could see lower levels of 8,000.
Absolutely. I mean, this is not a good time to buy for a long-term investment buy, but then possibly for traders who are looking for a bounce back. Normally after this sort of a fall, you have a bounce back for a day or two. And for that, I think only the short-term traders could look at it. But then a longer-term investment picks should happen at slightly lower levels. But then